does not do to dwell on dreams and forget to live. So Harry Potter's helped you too.
Well,
because I've said that to you in moments of self-pity.
Okay, I'm about to say something nice about you here. Brace yourself. Brace yourself.
I am erased. The lessons we learned from Harry Potter. I'm Izzy.
And I'm Garcia.
And welcome to Informed Informed. Okay, so this was me that was doing the research for this episode. It was kind of difficult to break down because there's a lot of stuff out there about, lessons from Harry Potter and stuff like that. And a lot of it was basically stuff like, just be yourself and good conquers evil and all that kind of stuff. And I didn't want to cover that. I wanted to go a little bit, I wanted to do things a little bit differently. Come up with a different... So what I effectively did was I went through and picked out my best quotes that I loved. Because Harry Potter's one of those things. I'm sure everybody has it.
Not everybody. Because, I'm not obsessed with Harry Potter.
No, I don't mean with Harry Potter. I mean
Okay.
with something. Whether it's your dad that died 2 years ago and you're in a sticky situation and you go to yourself, what would he do in that situation? You know?
Mm.
For me, that's been Harry Potter. Numerous times in my life where I've been sat there feeling incredibly sorry for myself. So this is actually my first one, I think. My first lesson that I've learned from Harry Potter is, when you want something to happen in life and it didn't quite work out, or you sat there and you're feeling sorry for yourself, Dumbledore's voice will just go through my head. And it'll
Which
be
version of Dumbledore?
be like, it does not do to dwell on dreams and forget to live. So that's my first one. That's my first. So
I'm pretty sure you've said that to me before.
I'm pretty sure I have.
Yeah.
Because it's genuinely something. You know how they say sometimes men think about the Roman Empire a lot? And I asked one of my friends, Sebastian, about this.
Hi, Seb.
And he was like, it just kind of pops up. And when I'm thinking about random stuff, the Roman Empire just kind of pops up. Well, for me, that's Harry Potter.
Fair enough. I have heard this, by the way. Not to segue this, but I have heard this, that men often think about the Roman Empire.
Yeah, well, I asked Sebastian about it, and he was like...
the man!
And he was like, yeah, that's the thing. That's the thing. So I picked out my top 10 lessons based on quotes as opposed to situations and scenarios within Harry Potter. I also want to make it obvious as well, this is not a Harry Potter breakdown video. This is lessons that we learned. So the first one is based on Dumbledore's quote, "It does not do to dwell on dreams and forget to live," which is obviously from the first book when Harry is staring into the mirror of Erised, seeing his parents who've obviously died. And for that one, I think that it's important to remember that everybody's going to encounter bad times, but the best way to deal with that isn't to wallow in self-pity, for want of a better phrase, is to just get up and crack on.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. Like I said, you've said this to me before, and I feel like it's been moments when I've been wallowing in self-pity.
So Harry Potter's helped you too.
Well,
because I've said that to you in moments of self-pity.
Well, you don't let me dwell in self-pity, so, whatever. Go on.
Okay, so that's the first one. Okay, so the second quote I've picked, and this is the one we've had multiple conversations about as well.
Is it the one about the stairs?
The stairs?
Under the stairs, the one that's on the rock.
Oh, no, it's not. No, it's not. It's a Sirius Black quote, and it's from the Goblet of Fire. If you want to know what a man's like, take a good look at the way he treats his inferiors, not his equals.
Yes.
We were having that conversation literally.
2 days ago?
In fact, you were the one that brought that quote up to me.
I did.
I've had a good influence, what can I say?
I mean, I didn't hear it from Harry Potter. It's quite universal. But I guess in terms of the zeitgeist of my life, because Harry Potter, you're obsessed, and it's been there since I was growing up, I get that, because it's true. I don't judge you based on how you
we were talking about a situation with somebody that we know, and I'd made a comment to that person along the lines of, "Oh, would you come into my house and do the same thing?" And then her response was, "Well, that's different because I know you. I don't know this other person." And that's when you said, if you want to find out what somebody's like, take a good look at the way they treat people they don't know rather than they do know. That's an important one.
Very important.
And it's happened many times, because this is the thing, people assume that because you're nice, they're nice to you.
Mm-hmm.
That's fine, like in a working environment specifically. New member of staff working, you get on really well with them, good beef, good bants, and then you hear them speaking to a student in a certain way, or you hear them speaking to the porters in a certain way, or whatever, that's when you start questioning, are they getting on with you? Well, they're treating you a certain way because you're their equal.
Mm.
Okay, number 3. It takes a great... This is, we were just talking about this. And there's a different... You know what I'm going to say, don't you? There's a difference in the books compared to the movies with this quote. The books phrases it slightly differently to the movies. So the book quote is, it takes a great deal of bravery to stand up to our enemies, but just as much to stand up to our friends. The movies changes that to, it takes a great deal of bravery to stand up to our enemies, but a great deal more to stand up to our friends. So this is one of the rare times when I will say that I think that the movies did a better job than the books, because I 100% agree with that. If it's all well and good to try and keep your friends happy, but if they're doing something that you don't agree with, then how can you claim to have a close relationship with that person when you're not calling them out on their shit effectively?
We were discussing this earlier today, in a completely separate situation, but it held true, and I see the point. It rings true.
Because otherwise, what you're effectively doing is going for short-term comfort,
Yeah,
over long-term gain. Long-term respect. This is the list I wrote: respect, admiration, self-respect, strength of friendships, and self-confidence. And they all build into that one thing. This thing. Yeah.
bravery. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, the next one. Quote 4. Okay. The world isn't split into good people and Death Eaters. That's like that. I think that's a good message. I think that's a good lesson to learn. And obviously, Death Eaters don't exist, although I did meet somebody once that had the dark mark tattooed on their arm. But yeah, sometimes good people do bad things, and sometimes bad people do good things.
Yes, I've had to learn this in adult life, because of the touch of the tism. My life is generally very black and white. You're either this or you're that. I think it's taken years of our friendship to get to this point of there are grey areas. There are grey areas, and nobody is all good and nobody is all bad.
And it's important to remember as well not to judge anybody on their worst day or their best day.
Mm-hmm.
Because anybody, given the right circumstances, is capable of both incredible good and incredible evil at any given moment.
Oh,
if
you
the
know how I feel about
circumstances are
people.
right.
I believe that people are born inherently evil, because otherwise we wouldn't have to teach them to do good.
Yeah. And sometimes people only do good things for other people because they want that other person to think that they're a good person.
Oh,
and then a couple of months down the line, they're going to get a rude awakening.
I was talking to my therapist about this. I was saying that altruism is a lie. People don't do things just for the sake of it. If you get the good feelings, then you're getting something from it. So if you're going to do it, at least do things to benefit people outside of yourself. And I do feel quite strongly about that.
Quote number 5. We're getting through these quite quickly.
I know, I'm quite enjoying this though.
Okay.
I'm loving this top 10 format.
Yeah. Okay, number 5. This was Dumbledore in Goblet of Fire. Now, the entire quote of a whole, I'm not a huge fan of. The entirety, it was Dumbledore's speech that he gives at the end of Goblet of Fire, in the Great Hall at the end of term.
I can see it in my mind.
Yeah, and he's talking about Lord Voldemort returning, and he's talking about Cedric.
Cedric's dead.
Cedric's dead, and he says, "Remember, Cedric Diggory, if there should ever be a time where you have to choose between what is right and what is easy, remember what happened to a boy who was good and kind and brave because he strayed across the path of Lord Voldemort. Remember Cedric Diggory." But the bit that I'm very... the bit that's got me through some decision making is the bit where it says, if there should ever come a time when you have to choose between what is right and what is easy. And that's another one of Dumbledore's thing. There's been a couple of moments in my life. Do you remember the whole thing with my last job? And yeah. And I was like, I knew if I put in a complaint about somebody, then it was going to cause me more havoc, more hassle than not. But Dumbledore, what's right, what versus what's easy? Is it the right thing to do? Yes, that's what you're going to do. And sometimes you're going to take stick for that. But at least your moral compass is all very self-respect.
Yeah, but it
is intact.
So, okay, I'm about to say something nice about you here. Brace yourself.
I am braced.
it's one of the things that I like about you. There aren't many, but it's one of the things that I like about you is that you encouraged the right instead of the easy. And I think that this is a thing that we have in common to an extent, because I am quite a moral person, as are you. My morals drive me. And I feel like what you were saying, it's not necessarily a morality thing. Because sometimes the easy thing can also be moral, but is it the right thing? And I sort of think that this goes back to the bravery thing.
Mm-hmm.
It takes that level of bravery to do the right thing, even in a situation where you could just take the easy out.
Yeah. And the Harry Potter books, although that's the only time in the books, as far as I'm aware, that it's specifically laid out in that format, there are a lot of examples of it. Now, I personally think that Harry Potter as a character is the only character really in the Harry Potter books that's kind of a little bit 2D. He always has to do the right thing. Now, every character in the Harry Potter book has their advantages, they've got their flaws, most characters have a lot of flaws. And J.K. Rowling is very good at articulating that this is one of Harry's flaws. She does it very well. So, like the second task in Goblet of Fire, when he turns up, he's the first person. He's supposed to rescue his champion, and he's determined to rescue
his friends
or everybody. Even Gabrielle,
Gabrielle, Fleur's sister,
wasn't his friend. So he went down. The point, for those of you who don't know, the point is they're supposed to go down, grab their champion
into water.
Not the champion, grab their hostage, go back up to the surface, and whoever gets there first wins. But Harry's determined to rescue everybody's hostages and ends up coming third out of fourth as a result. And everyone's calling him out on it. And then he ends up getting placed second because he showed, quote, outstanding moral fibre. And then Ron actually says, this didn't make it into the movies, but in the books, Ron says, see, Harry, you weren't being thick after all, you were showing outstanding moral fibre. Right? But that is another example of doing... But even then, like, I don't agree with Harry's decision, because at the end of the day, it's a task.
It's a competition.
It's a competition. Nobody would have drowned.
See, in Harry Potter, Harry is actually my least favourite character. I find him to be incredibly jarring. I don't.
He does have a lot of flaws. He's got a lot of anger issues. He's got a lot of.
But I do agree. He's got a lot of grief. He's got to go to get some bereavement counselling.
He's got some good. He's got a sassy, sarcastic sense of humour.
That he does.
He does have personality traits.
So in that sense, Harry Potter in the movies annoys me more than Harry Potter in the books, because Harry Potter in the movies comes across as a helpless third party, whilst Harry Potter in the books is not like that.
And at least you've got his internal monologue, so you know what he's thinking.
Yeah, but in the movies, it seemingly looks like Hermione and Ron do it all, and he's just there for the ride. So I didn't like that aspect of the films. You might not agree, but it's true. That for me,
I think they gave Hermione all the good bits.
Yeah,
and they took away all of her flaws from the all of her flaws got taken away, and she sort of gained her own. What's the opposite of flaws? Strengths.
Yeah.
She gained not only her strengths, but they gave her Ron's strengths.
Yeah.
And they gave her Harry's
strengths. I was like,
she was a proper Mary Sue character. In the books, she cocks up a lot.
Quite a bit.
She makes a lot of mistakes. She's got a lot of flaws. She freaks out.
She's a know-it-all.
She's not good under pressure.
This woman is not
on under pressure.
But not in the movies, she doesn't.
She kidnaps a woman and keeps her captive in a glass jar.
That she does. that she does. And then, because I feel like Winky, the household, because Winky's not in the movies, you don't get to see that part of Hermione's character. Was it Spew?
SPEW.
Yes.
Society for Promotion of Elfish Welfare.
Yes.
Sorry.
Spew. She started that movement in order to set the house elves free of their slavery. We don't even get that as a storyline in the movies. I think they dropped a ball with that one.
I think they dropped a ball with that one. I think they dropped a ball with a lot of things. Yeah. But anyway, that was number.
I also didn't like Dobby in the movies. That's neither here nor there. I know that everybody's obsessed with Dobby, but not me. I preferred Winky. She was a bit more realistic. She was an alcoholic. She was just a more realistic.
There's a lot of themes actually they missed out of the movies because there's more than one alcoholic.
Oh yeah.
What about Professor Trelawney? Raging alcoholic. And Harry actually feels quite sorry. She goes into the room of requirement to hide her sherry bottles because she's a raging alcoholic. It's really sad. You don't get to see a lot of the nuances behind these characters. And
no, they turned it into a kids' movie, which I guess they are kids' books. But as they grew, the thing with the Harry Potter books is they matured with the people that were reading them. The films didn't.
Yeah. Okay, so should we move on to number 6?
Yep. Oh, is that all we're at?
So I know, yeah, we've only got 10. So
yeah, 10. I know, but because we were breezing through them before, like we got stuck on a point. Go on.
Yeah. Okay, so point 6, I've got 2 quotes and an example, which is Creature's Tale is the example.
Okay.
And the quotes are, the first one is Dumbledore in Order of the Phoenix, talking, funnily enough, about Sirius Black's treatment of Creature, was indifference and neglect often do more damage than outright dislike.
Mm-hmm.
And the other quote, words are, in my not so humble opinion, a most inexhaustible source of magic, capable of both inflicting injury and remedying it. And that's another Dumbledore quote. And I used Creature's Tale, so those are the 2 quotes, and then Creature's Tale is the example, and how he goes from basically betraying Harry, getting Sirius killed, being in league with the Death Eaters.
Yep. Keeping Regulus's secrets.
Yeah, to the end of Deathly Hallows, where he's literally leading an army of house elves against Lord Voldemort in the final battle.
Yep.
And the answer to that is the power of kindness.
Yeah.
And hence where those 2 quotes, I think, are good, like with the whole, you've got to be careful what you say to people. Mm-hmm. And again, another example from work, students. A lot of people will just
they don't like having students. I love having students.
I love having students.
Yeah, oh, we've had this conversation in detail.
But it's not like literally they'll come in and they'll go, hi, I'm here for today in CT whatever. Yeah, sit down, and then they'll just crack on, as opposed to explaining anything and they'll sit there in silence all day, and that's because everybody else goes about their life, and that's the whole, well, for me, indifference and neglect do more damage than just outright dislike, because they're not learning anything, and then they're not looking at CT as a modality perhaps they want to go into. And that goes for a lot of things. Like if you're at an event or something and everybody's chatting but you don't have anything to say to this one person, you're not going to think anything of it, but you're just not going to speak to them. And then for you, you've just not spoken to them, but you don't know whether or not they're going to go home going, this person don't like me.
Yeah, do you know what I was thinking? I was thinking more along the lines of blended families and step-parents. Not all step-parents, my stepmom's great. But blended families and step-parents, when they ignore the child that was of a different mother or father, because, like you said, indifference causes a lot more problems than outright. Yeah. If you ignore a child, do you know what I learned recently? That the reason that eye contact is important for babies is because it's how they learn. It's how they learn. It's how they learn to smile. It's how they learn to interact, actually, with eye contact. I was like, what? Yeah, there's a name for it. I can't remember what it is. Somebody find it and let me know in the comments what it is. It's literally that they pick up on your cues from your facial features.
Interesting.
Yeah, so it's how they learn to smile. It's how they learn that if they're crying, mum will come to them. And such. If they are in a happy place or anything like that, and they want to give, babies they're not born knowing how to smile. For some reason, I thought babies were born knowing how to do basic face things. That's not true. They pick that up from their, well, not necessarily parent, but caregiver.
Interesting. I didn't know that.
So neglecting that, which brings back to your point, actually stunts their developmental growth. They won't know how to. Isn't that strange? Yeah. So I was like, because my question was, well, how do neurodivergent people then raise their kids? So I'm like, eye contact's a problem. So I'm like, how do you do that then? So it's different because you've got that bond.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like we have a bond. We look at each other's eyes sometimes. I mean, I look past you because I don't want to look at your face. Crack my glasses. But no, you're all right. Go on.
Anyway, I had something else I'd written down with regards to that. Okay, people who are treated better and spoken to better. This was what I got from this. I was thinking about this quote and thought, how could I articulate this in this episode? And what I basically wrote down was that people who are treated better and spoken to better are more likely to be happy, more likely to think that they live in a fairer society, which leads to less resentment of the world and the people around them, which leads to higher rates of optimism, which leads to people being more likely to be successful in life. And it all stems from those little moments where we have the opportunities to do little acts of kindness to strangers. And if you can increase the volume of that, you can live in best.
They always say, I wonder if that's why they say that Northerners are more friendlier than Southerners.
So much more friendly.
Yeah, and it's that general optimism. So even because I find that the most optimistic people that I find or that I come across are people that have less.
Say that again?
So the North is supposedly depressed, right? Economically depressed, but not depressed as a people, just economically depressed. They objectively have less in terms of the South.
Yeah.
People. The people have physically more things.
I understand what the word
great.
less means. Carry on.
Shut up. And so with that, it's like they tend to be a bit more optimistic. They tend to be able to see a better tomorrow. Whilst when you have more, you tend to be more insular. You are more likely to see what you don't have. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I found this. I found this. As a Southerner living in the North, this is what I found.
And I do agree very much with Dumbledore when he says that words are, in his not so humble opinion, the most inexhaustible source of magic. Because you do have to be very careful.
Mm-hmm.
And the way you phrase things and the way you are and the way you're perceived by others based on the things that you say can make or break an individual. They determine your success in life. They determine your they determine a huge number of factors of the way you're going to go. People are not going to want to work with you if they do not like you. That's the fundamental basics of it. And they will determine your overall happiness in life. And especially as it comes in handy, if somebody's going through a bad time, then obviously words are there to help, but words can also do incredible damage. So anyway, that was number 6 lessons. The power of kindness, to sum it all up.
I do hope that at some point we'll come back to this, the power of words. Because I do think we could do an entire episode on the power of words.
Yeah. But this is a
Harry Potter.
This is a Harry Potter one. Okay. Number 7. This is a fantastic quote, actually. And this is said by Dumbledore in the Deathly Hallows. Do not pity the dead, pity the living. And above all, pity those who live without love. And do I really need to give any explanation for that one? But I had two quotes on that. There was another quote that was similar. This was a Slughorn quote in Half-Blood Prince, and I'm not sure quite why I bundled these two together, but I felt like they kind of went, even though they kind of didn't. And the second one is, he's talking about love potions. When you've seen as much of life as I have, you will not underestimate the power of obsessive love.
Oh my god, sounds like a stalker.
And I'm like, fair, because that happens in life.
It does. It does. And it makes you do crazy things. I mean, I've seen it. I've seen some crazy stuff. And we were having a very conversation about this earlier, about crazy exes and sort of stuff like that. Is it love? Or is it just an obsessive personality that refuses to let go?
Lost.
Yes.
I think love is something that's gained over time.
I agree. I don't believe in love at first sight. I think that's nonsense.
Yeah. But yeah, going back to the first quote, don't pity the dead, pity the living. I think that speaks to loneliness. Pity people who are incredibly lonely. And second of all, when somebody dies, somebody says, oh my god, it's terrible because this person died and they were only 28. But they're not allowed to feel sorry for anymore. It's the family that should be getting the sympathy, because that person has no feelings. They've got no emotions. They don't know nothing. They're just not there anymore.
Can I use an example and sidetrack us for a little bit?
Sure.
So, recently in America, there was a gentleman that was killed by his girlfriend. She was cleaning her gun, she says, and the gun went off and he died. Then the family came out. Oh, so he's black and she's white. It is relevant. The family came out and tried to rally. There's been no investigation in this because the police are saying it was an accident. So the family have come out, his family, and have tried to rally the sort of black public, American black public, to sort of fight for an investigation. And on the internet, social medias, there's been loads of hashtag not our fights about this, about black people saying that he quoted that he would rather sleep with a white dog than a black woman, right? So it's galvanized an entire population of people to be like, not our fight, not our problem. Sort of situation in which we're not even looking at how the family must feel. They've lost someone, whether black or white. The situations around it, they're the people.
If she genuinely accidentally killed him, she must be in a real place like that.
I'm not commenting on that.
She must be.
She must be, but I don't know. But the family are obviously hurting about this. They're really hurting. But he's not here to answer for his words, because he posted that on like social medias, a series of messages over a series of years about his hate for black women. They now want that support, that help. So it that actually feeds into one of your previous quotes about words, the power of words, and then this now about the pity that we shouldn't pity him. He's dead.
He's dead.
We should be feeling
sorry for the family.
Sorry for the family.
Yeah.
Who obviously loved him.
Okay, number 8. I've got 2 quotes for this one. The first one is, it is our choices that show who we really are, far more than our abilities. And that was a Dumbledore quote from the Chamber of Secrets when Harry notices some similarities between him and Lord Voldemort. They're both half-bloods, both parcel mouths, they can talk to snakes.
Both orphans.
Both grew up away from their parents. Voldemort was a Slytherin, the sorting out wanted to put Harry into Slytherin, and then Dumbledore says to him, "Well, why did it then choose to put you in Gryffindor? Why did it not put you in Slytherin?" And Harry says, "The only reason it put me in Slytherin is because I asked it to." Like defeated, like
yeah.
And then Dumbledore goes, "Well, exactly. That's exactly the point. It is our choices more than our abilities to show who we really are." And the second one was from Dumbledore. Spoken to
Dumbledore has some gems.
He does, doesn't he? He does, doesn't he? He says this to Cornelius Fudge in Goblet of Fire when I think he was talking about the giants or something along those lines. And he says, "You fail to recognise it matters not what someone is born, but what they grow to be." So those are my 2 quotes. And I think this is fairly self-explanatory, but it goes into the whole thing of no excuses. No matter, don't look to the past, look to the future. Okay, this bad thing happened or whatever, but your choice to how you choose to handle that situation will show the world what kind of person you are, because bad things are going to happen to you. Bad things will always happen to you. It's not about minimizing bad things happening. It's about how you handle with those bad things. And if you spend the rest of your life complaining about that, using them as excuses for future choices, you're never going to get anywhere in life.
I do believe that life is a series of choices. Anyway, I think that life is a series of choices. You wake up and you make, obviously there's bigger choices and smaller choices. Not every choice is going to have massive effects. But the little ones, the insignificant ones, the ones that you don't think about, they're the ones that really show who you are. But I think. Final quote?
No, we're on number 9.
Oh.
This is number 9. I'm doing them in lessons, not in terms of, only quotes. So this is not a Dumbledore quote. This is a Kingsley Shacklebolt quote. And probably the most controversial one I've got on this list.
Hit me.
Every human life is worth the same and worth saving. That's the quote. However, I
disagree.
No, I don't agree. No, I don't disagree. Sorry, I do agree. However, and I think most people on the surface will tell you that they agree, but I think when you actually dig down into it, most people don't agree. So it's all well and good saying, oh yes, I think every life's worth the same and every life is worth saving. But then you ask them where they stand on the death penalty, where they stand on abortion, where they stand on Russia, Ukraine, or whether the war should end now or whether it should continue because of compromising deal or whatever, where they stand on Israel, Palestine. And I think you'll find very, very few people genuinely believe that all lives are worth saving and that all lives are worth the same. Thoughts?
I agree with what you've just said, except for the abortion thing. Because I don't think that prior to 6 weeks it's a baby. But apart from that, I don't know.
I said life. I didn't say babies. I said life. The word I used was life.
True. Okay, fair. And I think it depends on when you consider that life happened. But I do think that I agree with you that many people. There's a lot of things like that where they will say they agree with something across the board, and then it comes to it, and then really they don't believe that.
The last quote, I very, very firmly believe. It's not a Dumbledore quote. It's a Ginny Weasley quote.
Okay.
And I believe the full quote is something along the lines of, when you've grown up with Fred and George, you start to believe that anything's possible if you've got the nerve. But it's the last bit, anything's possible if you've got the nerve. And I think that that's true. And I think the reason why a lot of people don't accomplish what they want to in life is because they haven't got the nerve. Or they've got an inbuilt fear of failure or a fear of something. And when if you break it down, say somebody's like, I want to go to university to be a doctor, as an example, or to go to university and be a lawyer. Why haven't you? Well, I can't afford it. Well, why not? Because have you looked at the funding? Have you looked at this? Have you looked at that? And when you actually go, why, and continue asking that question until they provide an answer, the end result is always fear of some sort, whether that's fear of failure. What if I drop out and I've got to pay all this money back? What if blah, blah, blah? Do you know what I mean? There's always an underlying fear at the bottom of all of that. What if my dad tells me that he was right all along and I am a waste of space because I tried one thing and I failed?
I agree, but I also think that it's not necessarily a fear. Or maybe it is a fear, because I think it's comfortability. People are comfortable in a certain situation.
Fear of stepping outside of their comfort zone. And one of my favourite quotes, this is not a Harry Potter quote, you've got to get comfortable being uncomfortable.
I knew you were going to say that. I knew you were going to say that.
Because I've said it to you before.
Yes, and I also feel like it's so easy to say these things out loud. It's a different thing to sort of live by it. Because the society that we live in doesn't necessarily lend itself to that. Because, I mean, I'd love to go and do whatever I want. First thing on my list, murder. No, I'm joking.
She's not.
But laws. So, I see your point, but I think that it's more nuanced than that. But I like the quote.
Yeah, I know. I do very much firmly believe that if you want to go out and you could want to accomplish X, Y, Z,
murder,
then there's, within reason. Okay, so that kind of takes out the word anything, I suppose. Fair enough. I can't argue about quote 9 about, every life, but and then try and argue that, anything's possible. Yeah. I mean, it is possible. Anything is okay. Let me put you another word. Anything is possible if you've got the nerve. If you've got the nerve to break the law and you genuinely wanted to hit me over the head with an axe, you physically you could do it. There's nothing stopping you. You'd face consequences, sure, but you could do it. See what I mean? Anything is possible.
I mean, you're just fixing things around the quote to make it fit, but that works. It does. It's a yeah.
Okay, I also had a... Sorry, go on.
No, go on.
I was going to move on.
Yeah, I thought we'd go on.
Yeah, so those were the ones that I'd written down because I didn't want a lot of the lessons from Harry Potter are quite cliche.
Mhm.
Like I was mentioning earlier, you know, that scene where Fudge, I think, accuses Maxime in Goblet of Fire because she's half giant. Like we could do an entire... There's a lot of instances when you look at the treatment of the house elves, treatment of the centaurs, everything Umbridge does. Cornelius Fudge making snide comments about people based on the fact that they're half giant or whatever it is. Or there's the treatment of Muggleborns, treatment of half-bloods. There's so many instances of discrimination. We could do an entire episode on that and then at the end be like, don't discriminate, guys. But what's the point? Because everybody already knows that. Seems a bit... Redundant, yeah. So I went... a couple of other ones that I'd written them down, but I didn't feel they were important enough to be in my top 10 lessons, these quotes, so I thought I'd just go over them and explain the situation behind them. But I thought they were a little bit too cliche to make it in, so I thought it'd be fun to just go over them at the end. Okay, so the first one, and when I say cliche, I mean they're used a lot in fiction. They might not be phrased word for word the same, but they're basically running themes that is not unique to Harry Potter. This next one, funnily enough, is said by
Dumbledore.
Yeah, yes, indeed, in Philosopher's Stone, talking about the Philosopher's Stone. The Philosopher's Stone has two purposes. One, it produces the elixir of life, which makes a drinker immortal, and secondly, it can turn...
Flamel.
Yeah, and secondly, who celebrated his 665th birthday just before he died, and it can turn any metal into pure gold. So the quote from Dumbledore is, "As much money and life as you could want, the two things most human beings would choose above all. The trouble is, humans do have a knack of choosing precisely those things that are worse for them." I'm like, fair. Next one is also another Dumbledore quote, also in Philosopher's Stone. Also talking about Nicholas Flamel. "To the well-organised mind, death is but the next great adventure." That's been reused. There was a very similar quote in Lord of the Rings, except that is, death is just another path, one which we all must take. There's, it's been done to death. Another one, also by Dumbledore, Goblet of Fire, said in the same speech that he gives when he's talking about Cedric Diggory's death and Lord Voldemort returning. "We are only as strong as we are united, and as weak as we are divided."
Very cliche.
Very cliche. See what I mean about a lot of cliche quotes? And the next one, again, I find is also kind of a little bit cliche. Also said by Dumbledore. But this...
Dumbledore said.
Dumbledore said. Instead of Simon says, we should start Dumbledore said. This is said in Deathly Hallows. "Perhaps those who are best suited to power are those who have never sought it. Those who have had leadership thrust upon them and take up the mantle because they must, and find to their surprise that they wear it well."
This was direct from book to film, wasn't it?
I don't think this was in the movie.
Oh, I remember this quote. Well, I've read the books for a few
It kind of reminds me of that 12th Night quote by Shakespeare. Some are born great, some achieve greatness, and some have greatness thrust upon them.
Yeah.
Maybe it's because he uses the word thrust.
But it's saying the same thing.
Basically similar sort of thing. And it's also very prevalent in Game of Thrones with the whole Jon Snow arc.
I can't wait till we do our lessons learned Game of Thrones edition.
Yeah, number one lesson learned from Game of Thrones. Don't write a TV series when the books are only half out because you're going to screw it up at the end. Yeah, number one lesson learned.
Game of Thrones. To play to win, bitch.
And the last one is not a quote, it's just a passage from the books. Which every time I read it, I'm like, yeah. I agree with it anyway. "It was the difference between being dragged into arena to face a battle to the death and walking into the arena with your head held high. Some people would say that there was little to choose between the two, but Dumbledore knew, and so do I, thought Harry, and so did my parents, that it was all the difference in the world. I'm like, yeah, 100%.
Self-respect.
Self-respect. It is self-respect. If you're going to die, do it with your head held high.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Great.
Those are my lessons, top 10 lessons learned from Harry Potter. What do you think?
I think that, Harry Potter, obviously transformative for you. She's got it tattooed on her. Deathly Hallows. It's become transformative to me over the course of our friendship, but only because you're obsessed with it. I thought the films were garbage. Apart from the Philosopher's Stone, which again, but even then, I didn't like Quirrell, the way that they did Quirrell. I know a lot of people did, but I didn't.
No, I didn't.
I enjoyed the books more.
We could do an entire episode just on how much they screwed the movies up.
Yeah.
Or, our thoughts on the series as a whole, or comparisons between books to movie.
But generally, I'm happy that we've done this. I'm excited for our Lessons Learned series. Make sure that you join in for that. Join in the conversation for that. But yeah, the fact is, Dumbledore has the best quotes. That's what I took away from that. Is that
a lot of them. Oh, I also had a Lord Voldemort quote on the list.
Who's my favourite character?
And I actually thought this was a very fair and reasonable quote from Lord Voldemort. Greatness inspires envy. Envy engenders spite. Spite spawns lies. And I'm like, yeah, I think that's reasonable.
Yeah,
I think that's fair. 100%. I mean, I'm assuming he didn't say it with the best of intentions. But there's also a lot of Sirius Black quotes on there. A couple of Sirius Black quotes. There's a Kingsley quote, there's a Ginny quote. And I also put at the end a Daniel Radcliffe quote, but I never got around to it because there's nowhere else to put it. And I just thought it was funny. I just thought it was a funny Daniel Radcliffe quote. And it was, I used to be self-conscious about my height, but then I thought, fuck that, I'm Harry Potter.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah.
Alright, if everybody else can find a fuck that, I'm whatever it is, then I think that quote can serve people well, whatever it is they're self-conscious about.
Yeah. Last word of the episode. That's a good quote to end it on.
Yeah.
Okay, let's wrap up and join us next time for our lesson series where we will be discussing and I'll be presenting the lessons I learned from Full Metal Alchemist. Both the shitty series and the manga adaptation, which is Brotherhood, Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood. But yeah, join us for this series because you never know, you might find something that will be the quote that you live by.
Yeah, I've shared the quotes that I live by.
Harry Potter.
The Harry Potter quotes. And perhaps we'll revisit, once we've done 1 or 2 episodes on Lesson Learned, perhaps we can revisit the same fandoms again in the future for various other topics. We'll see.
Okay.
See you later.
Yep. Let us know if you agree or disagree with any of our views. That's the point of the conversation. Join in.
Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell.